Greetings, curious souls. You've found your way to the right place. Real Midnight. Here, every second hides a secret, and every story is more than just a legend. My name is BAYU, and what I see is not always the same as what you see. My name is BAYU. I was born in a small village in Java, right at the foot of a mountain that is always covered in mist every morning. From the outside, my life looked ordinary. Just a village boy, growing up in a simple family. My father was a farmer, and my mother sold food at the market. But ever since I was little, there was something different about me. Something I didn't understand back then. People used to say I was a quiet child, that I spent too much time daydreaming. But the truth is, I wasn't daydreaming. I was seeing things that others couldn't. Sometimes in the corner of my house, I would see a shadow standing still, just staring at me. Sometimes at night, I would hear footsteps on the porch, even though nobody was there. I never dared to tell anyone, not even my parents. Deep down, I knew they wouldn't believe me. My childhood was filled with confusion. Why could I see those things? Why was I the only one who could hear whispers in the middle of the night? Until one day I finally realized, maybe I wasn't just an ordinary child. That night, the electricity in my village went out. Everything was pitch black, except for the faint glow of an oil lamp in the living room. I sat there with my mother, while my father was still out in the fields, guarding the crops from wild boars. My mother eventually fell asleep on the mat, leaving me alone, staring at the small, flickering flame. For some reason, the house felt unusually cold that night. The air was heavy, different from any other night. I could feel the hair on my arms stand on end, as if something or someone was watching me. And then I saw it. From the direction of the kitchen, a figure appeared. It was tall, thin, with long hair covering its face, standing silently beside the old wooden cupboard. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The figure didn't move, just stood there with its head bowed. Then slowly, I heard it. The sound of crying. A woman's sob, soft yet piercing, straight into my chest. I wanted to scream and wake my mother, but no sound came out. My voice was gone. My mouth felt locked shut. I squeezed my eyes shut, covering my face with both hands. But I could hear it moving closer. The wooden floor creaked with each step. Closer and closer, until it stopped, right in front of me. When I finally dared to open my eyes, there was nothing there. Only the oil lamp trembling slightly, as if someone had just blown on it, right from the place where that figure had been standing. From that night on, I knew I could see things that others couldn't. After that night, the strange things kept happening more often. Sometimes I saw shadows passing through the yard. Sometimes there were knocks on my bedroom window when everyone else was asleep. I learned to stay quiet, to pretend I didn't hear, didn't see. Because the one time I tried telling a friend, they just laughed at me. I realized that if I wanted people to see me as normal, I had to keep it all to myself. So from a young age, I got used to holding it in. I taught myself to ignore it, even though deep down I knew. The more I pretended not to care, the stronger they came closer. What scared me even more was that I started to feel their emotions. Sometimes I'd get angry for no reason. Sometimes I'd feel sudden sadness, as if I just lost someone. Those feelings weren't mine. They belonged to them, and they stuck to me. I was still just a kid, but inside I felt old, like I was living in two worlds at the same time. The world of humans, and the world no one else could see. And from then on, I started to realize something that would become the biggest part of my life. I was an indigo. After the figure in the kitchen, I started having dreams that felt way too real. At first, I thought they were just normal dreams, but over time I realized they weren't. They felt more like a doorway. When I was only 8 years old, I often dreamed of walking down a long, narrow path, surrounded by giant trees that stood like towering figures. The path was always the same. It never changed. Strangely, the further I walked, the darker it got, and the colder the air became. Sometimes I'd hear whispers like many people speaking at once, but I could never understand their language. What scared me most was that every dream always ended in the same place. A huge stone gate covered in moss, carved with strange symbols I'd never seen before. The gate felt like it was waiting for me to step through, but every time I got close, I would wake up, my whole body drenched in sweat. My mom often said, "BAYU never sleeps peacefully." I would just smile and pretend everything was fine. But deep down, I knew those dreams weren't just random, especially because of one thing that never changed. The voice of a woman calling my name from behind the gate. A voice soft, sorrowful, yet terrifying. "BAYU," she called, clear, right in my ear, even though I was still far from the gate. And I knew, sooner or later I would be forced to cross that gate. That day I was sitting in class listening to the math teacher writing on the board. Everything seemed normal until suddenly I felt something was off. The air around me turned cold, and from the corner of my eye I saw a woman standing outside the classroom window. What froze me was this. Our classroom was on the second floor. It was impossible for anyone to be standing there. I turned my head slowly and the figure was clear. Long hair, a pale face, empty eyes just staring at me. I wanted to shout, but my body was frozen. Then I noticed I wasn't the only one who saw her. My desk mate Rudy glanced over too, then rubbed his eyes and said, "Hey, whose shadow is that?" Like he wasn't sure what he'd seen. The figure vanished just as suddenly. But from that day on, I became more certain. I wasn't completely crazy. Sometimes other people could catch a glimpse of what I saw. The difference was I saw them clearly, while others only caught a shadow. That night I heard footsteps in the yard. I peeked through the window and saw the same woman standing under the mango tree staring at our house. She was following me. From then on, I felt like my life was never fully safe, not even at school. Their world seemed to be sticking to mine, and no matter where I ran, they stayed. I still remember it clearly. That night I went to bed earlier than usual because my body felt so tired. But in the middle of my sleep, I found myself again on that same path in my dream. The difference was, this time I wasn't alone. At the end of the path, there was an old man standing. He wore simple village clothes and held a wooden staff in his hand. His face was calm, peaceful, so different from all the other figures I had seen before. He looked at me for a while and then said, "BAYU, don't be afraid." His voice was deep and steady, and for the first time I felt a bit safe. "Who are you?" I asked innocently because I was truly confused. "I'm only a gatekeeper. You will often see things that others cannot. That is an inheritance you cannot refuse." I didn't really understand what he meant, but somehow I felt his words were true. He wasn't frightening at all. In fact, he felt like a grandfather full of wisdom. Before I could ask more, he lifted his hand and pointed toward the stone gate that always appeared in my dreams. "One day, you will walk through that gate. And when that day comes, your choice will decide the path of your life." I woke up with my heart pounding. For the first time, I felt that what I was experiencing wasn't just disturbances. It was a journey I was meant to take. And at that moment, I started to believe I wasn't alone. A few days after the dream about the old gatekeeper, I started getting used to the presence of that woman who often appeared near my house. But that night, I felt like my soul was being pulled out of my body. I was sitting in the living room trying to study, when suddenly I heard a soft tapping on the window, 3 times. At first I thought it was just the wind, but when I looked, the window that had been shut tight was now slightly open. From the small gap, I saw strands of long black hair covering the glass. My body froze. Slowly, I stood up, walked closer, and pulled the curtain aside. Outside, right under the thick mango tree, the woman was standing. Her face was hidden by her hair, but her eyes, they glowed faintly, staring directly at me. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then she slowly raised her hand and pointed at me. From her pale lips, I could read the movement of her words. "Come with me." For some reason, my feet started moving on their own, like I was being pulled. I was just about to open the front door when suddenly my mother's voice came shouting from her room, "BAYU, go to sleep, it's late." In that instant, it was like I snapped out of her control and I collapsed onto the floor. When I looked back at the window, the woman was gone. But deep inside, I knew she wasn't gone for good. She was only waiting. The next morning, I came to school earlier than usual. The classroom was still empty, just me and the sound of birds outside the window. I sat down, copying some notes, trying hard to forget what had happened last night. Suddenly, a chair in the back row screeched loudly, like someone had pulled it out. I quickly turned around. Empty. No one was there. I stared at that chair for a while, convincing myself it was just my imagination. But then the chair moved again, this time louder, sliding to the side on its own. My heart jumped, and before I could process it, the other chairs began to tremble one by one, as if invisible students had just walked in and taken their seats. On the blackboard, the chalk that had been lying still slowly lifted into the air and started writing in big letters, "You have been chosen." My hands shook, my knees almost gave out. I stepped back, panicking, until the classroom door suddenly swung open and my classmates walked in. The moment they entered, everything went back to normal. The chairs stayed still. The writing was gone. I just stood there frozen. But one thing convinced me it was real. My hands were covered in chalk dust even though I had never touched the blackboard. I thought I was getting strong enough to handle the sightings. But that night I realized there was another level to this world that was sticking to me. I was lying down trying to sleep when suddenly my ear felt hot. A woman's whisper came from inside my head. At first it was faint, then it got clearer. "BAYU, don't fight me. You're already mine." I shot upright, my heart pounding. I looked around the room, empty. I'd turned the light off, only the moonlight coming through the window lit the room. But the voice didn't stop. She giggled, then said, "Open the door." I'm already outside. I held my breath, grabbed the blanket and pulled it over my face. Then I heard footsteps outside the room, coming closer. Slow, deliberate. The wooden boards creaked, one by one. I knew it was real. My door trembled like something was scratching at it from the other side. I wanted to scream, but my body was frozen. The woman's voice came closer, right into my ear this time. "Sooner or later, you will come with me." That night I didn't sleep at all. And I knew this was no longer just a disturbance. This was the start of a bond I couldn't just break. After that long night filled with whispers, I tried convincing myself it was all just a hallucination. But the next morning, when I washed my face in the bathroom, I noticed something on my arm. Long scratch marks. 3 red lines, like claw marks. I froze. I didn't remember hurting myself last night. I didn't even have nails that long. With shaking hands, I tried washing it off with water, but the more I washed, the clearer the marks became. As I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection looked normal, but in the corner of the mirror, there was another reflection. The long-haired woman stood behind me, head lowered, then slowly lifted her face to look straight at me through the glass. I spun around. No one was there, but in my ear a soft whisper, "That's my mark. Don't try to run." That day I went to school with my arm hidden under a jacket. The whole day I felt eyes on me, following me, piercing through the crowd. And I knew I wasn't just being haunted anymore. I'd been marked. That night I tried going to sleep early, but just as my eyes were about to close, the air in my room turned freezing cold. Goosebumps rose all over my skin. I opened my eyes, and in the corner of the room there was another figure. It wasn't the long-haired woman. This time it was an old man. His body was thin, his face pale, and his eyes completely white, no pupils at all. He just stood there, staring at me with no expression. My throat tightened. Slowly his mouth opened, not to speak, but to let out a long guttural moan like the last breath of a dying man. My whole body shook. Then suddenly the old man raised his hand and pointed straight at me. From the doorway I heard the woman's laughter. They were both there. It wasn't just one spirit. There were two, and it felt like they were fighting over something. Fighting over me. I covered my ears, curled up, but their voices only grew louder inside my head. The white-eyed man whispered, "Don't follow her. You're mine." I wanted to faint to escape, but deep down I knew, even if I ran, they would still follow. After that night, I was scared to sleep, but my body got so tired that I finally dozed off at my study table, and the strange dream came again. I was walking down a dark corridor. The walls were damp and covered in moss, and I could hear someone crying in the distance. I kept walking until I reached an old wooden door, half open. Inside, the long-haired woman was sitting, hugging her knees and sobbing. As soon as I stepped closer, she turned her head fast. Her face was torn and bloody, her eyes glowing red. She ran at me and grabbed my hand. I woke up screaming, drenched in cold sweat. When I looked at my hand, there was wet soil on it, just like in the dream. This wasn't just a bad dream, it was a door. My sleep had become a path for them. I realized then that I wasn't only seeing ghosts. They were pulling me into their world little by little. After those nights full of terror, I finally told my mom a little bit about what I'd been experiencing. She didn't say a word, just looked at me with a heavy expression, like she already knew something. The next night, without much explanation, she took me to the house of an old shaman in the next village. His house was simple, made of bamboo walls, but the strong smell of incense hit me the second I walked in. The old man stared at me for a long time. His eyes were small but sharp. He didn't ask who I was. He only said, "This child is already open. There's no way back." I froze. His words made my whole body tremble. He grabbed a handful of flowers, threw them onto the burning coals, and sat cross-legged. "They're fighting over your body, the woman and the man with the white eyes. One wants to make you a follower, the other wants to use you as a vessel." I forced myself to ask, "What does that mean?" He just stared at me for a long time, then whispered, "You're indigo. You're a bridge, and bridges are never safe." That night I went home with a tight chest. I wished it was just another nightmare that would end soon. But his words only confirmed one thing. I wasn't just an ordinary person anymore. My mom told me to pray more often. That night I sat in my room reciting prayers with all the strength I had. But the longer I prayed, the heavier the air around me felt. Suddenly, the candle I had lit started to shake. Its flame bent low, then went out. The room fell into darkness. In that darkness, a faint voice whispered right in my ear. A woman's voice. Keep praying until your tongue is cut off. I jolted, but my body wouldn't move. Then from the other side, another voice came, the man with the white eyes. Stop, be quiet, I can give you peace. Their voices clashed, echoing so loud it felt like they were inside my head. I tried to cover my ears, but it was useless. That was when I realized praying didn't drive them away. It only made them angrier. I ran to my mom's room, shaking all over. But the moment I entered, she looked at me strangely, as if another face was overlapping mine. She just broke down crying, hugging me tight, without saying a single word. Sometimes a curse isn't about who haunts you, but about who you let in. A few days later, I grew weaker. My sleep was disturbed, my body thinner. That night, I dreamed again of the dark hallway. This time, they both appeared together. The long-haired woman stood to my left, her eyes filled with tears. The man with the white eyes stood to my right, his face blank. Both of them reached out their hands. The woman's voice trembled. Come with me. You'll see a world no one else has ever seen. You'll be my eyes. Meanwhile, the man spoke calmly. Come with me, and you'll be free from fear. They'll never be able to touch you again. I stood frozen between them, cold sweat dripping down my face. I knew whoever I chose would bind me forever. Slowly, I lifted my hand, trembling, until finally, I woke up. My breath was heavy, but on my palm there was a mark of damp soil, and at my window I saw a shadow, standing, watching me. It wasn't just a dream anymore. I realized the choice was still waiting, and sooner or later, I would have to decide. That night I couldn't sleep. The air in my room felt so heavy, like thousands of eyes were watching me. The clock on the wall stopped ticking right at 12, and the whole house went silent like a graveyard. Slowly, my bedroom door started to shake on its own. From the crack, a cold wind slipped in, carrying a whisper. The woman's voice called softly, "BAYU, the time has come. Choose me." Not long after, the man with white eyes spoke from the other side. Don't listen to her. I'm the one who can save you. My body froze, but I knew I couldn't keep running. I walked closer to the door, my hand trembling as I touched the handle. At that moment, their voices grew louder, clashing inside my head, until it felt like my ears would burst. I shut my eyes and screamed with everything I had. Enough, I'm not choosing either of you. Suddenly, everything went silent, dead quiet. Then slowly, the door opened on its own. At the doorway, there was nothing, just pitch black darkness waiting for me. But on my palm, fresh red scratches appeared like new wounds. And from inside that darkness, a third voice spoke, deeper, more terrifying than both of them. If you won't choose, then I will choose for you. The lights in my room went out. The world turned black. That was the last night I felt like myself. After that, everything changed. After that night, my life was never the same again. People at home said I looked different. My eyes seemed empty. My voice sounded heavier. And sometimes I talked to myself without even realizing it. My mother cried almost every night, holding me tight as if she was afraid I'd disappear. But inside me, I felt something far more terrifying. It wasn't just the long-haired woman. It wasn't just the man with white eyes. There was something else, something bigger, that had already attached itself to me. Sometimes when I looked into the mirror, my reflection didn't move the same way I did. It smiled when I didn't. It blinked when I didn't. And whenever I tried to ignore it, I heard that third voice, deep, heavy, full of authority, whisper inside my head. You're no longer Bayou. You are the doorway, and a doorway never truly closes. From that moment on, I was never really alone. With every step I took, with every breath I made, I knew their world and mine had already merged, and all I could do was wait. Wait for the moment that doorway would finally open wide. And maybe, by the time you're hearing my story, that doorway isn't just watching me anymore. It might already be watching you. Sometimes the end of a story is just the door to something much bigger. That night, I truly thought everything was over. My body was tired, my mind was a mess. I lay on my bed hoping tomorrow morning things would finally feel normal again. But instead of sleep, a coldness crept over me, crawling across my skin. I turned to the window, and that's when I saw it. Not the long-haired woman, not the man with the white eyes. It was the stone gate from my dreams, now standing in my yard, covered in moss, glowing faintly in the night. Thick mist poured out from its cracks, swallowing the air. I froze, trembling, staring through the glass. Inside the mist, I saw shadows, people, strangers, some crying, some whispering, some just staring at me with empty eyes. They weren't just ghosts anymore. They looked like they were waiting. Then I heard his voice again. The old man, the gatekeeper. Faint, echoing, either in my head or from within the fog. Bayou, your time has come. You're not just an ordinary child, you are the chosen one. The door has opened, and only you can decide to close it or let it swallow the world. My knees almost gave out, my chest tightened. At that moment, I knew everything I went through so far and was only the beginning. That night, I finally understood one terrifying truth. I wasn't just being haunted by them. I was the key to all of them. The gate trembled. A dark glow seeped through the cracks. And before I could run, I heard her voice. The woman's whisper. Soft, but echoing through the entire house. Bayou, welcome to our world.